Good evening, welcome to Have I Got News for You? I'm Kirsty Young. In the news this week, after Prince Philip is taken to hospital during the Diamond Jubilee celebrations, his senior aides pop round to cheer him up. In Westminster, as ministers are told to carry out yet another stringent round of redundancies, George Osborne is greeted by the few remaining staff in his private office. After Two Little Boys is cut short at the Jubilee concert, Rolf Harris fans turn up at Lenny Henry's house. And after sitting through dozens of acts that she would never have chosen to watch at her Jubilee concert, the Queen was at last able to enjoy herself at the after-show party. On Ian's team tonight is a comedian who says he can't remember what he did from the age of 18 to 26. So, on drugs then. Please welcome Greg Davis. And with Paul tonight is a writer, broadcaster and poker player who recently won the €5,000 event in Monte Carlo. Of course, that was way back in April when the euro was actually worth something. Please welcome Victoria Corrin. And so we start then with the bigger stories of the week. Paul and Victoria, take a look at this.
Ah, yes, this is the obviously the magnificent sight on the Thames, the flotilla. This is people enjoying themselves. That's the royal family enjoying themselves. And that's what horses used to look like 60 years ago, when we didn't have horses after the war. And that's what we've got now. So it's a jubilee, I think. Yes, this is not the hardest question we've ever been asked.
I managed to catch quite a heartwarming moment about halfway through when the Queen almost smiled. I have a feeling she was there thinking, I've been given someone else's day out by mistake. This is an 86-year-old lady monarch. They've given her a boat trip and a pop concert. Why not bungee jump on a PlayStation?
This is the four-day celebration of the Queen's Jubilee. Let's start then with that flotilla. It was inspired by the 18th century Canaletto, which was painted for the Lord Mayor's Day.
I mean, he's got to be quick because some of those boats are moving quite rapidly.
Let's take a look at the flotilla.
Yeah, and that's the leading boat, honestly.
Was anybody there? Did you go along?
I was there.
Were you?
Yeah, I thought it was fantastic, actually.
With the greatest respect, Ian, could you see through the crowds?
To be honest, most people who were down there seemed to be enjoying it. There were huge numbers of people, and the boats were absolutely fabulous. The BBC got into lots of trouble with its coverage, because what it usually did is underestimate the general public and thought, well, they're stupid, they'll want to see Fern Cotton. And Matt Baker and some people from the One Show. And literally, in the crowd I was with, there were about 10 people more interesting and better informed than everybody on the entire BBC for the entire day.
But what do people want, though, Ian?
Spectacle, music.
Yeah, but the spectacle's there. In terms of people criticised the BBC's commentary for it, saying it wasn't intellectually rigorous. I mean, it is just a load of people going down a river on boats at the end of the day.
You see, well, that's the sort of intellectual rigour that we've come to expect from you, Vic.
Would you have wanted people to go and there's the Queen on a boat there?
You know, it's not looking
Puts
at the
me in mind
Queen.
of the time I read the Iliad.
No.
If you're going to interview people on the route, they're largely people who spend their lives dressed from head to foot in Union Jacks.
No,
if you say,
patronising rubbish. Absolutely not. OK, my best moment, I'm standing in the crowd next to a man whose son is in one of the flotillas. Up the river comes a whole barge full of Indian blokes in full tartan, playing pipes and drums. The sound fills the entire river. It was fabulous. And I thought, where else are you going to get that? This is worth turning out for. So, no, they're not all full of idiots.
Will you concede there were some idiots?
Yes. Well, yes.
It does put people into some extraordinary postures when they very early on in the broadcast they referred to the Thames as a noble river. I don't know if it is a noble river, really. I don't know if rivers can be noble. I mean, I used to live near the Thames, and admittedly we'd get a jar full of Thames water and put it on the mantelpiece just to see what nobility looked like. It looks a bit muddy.
Way back in the 18th century, the diarist John Evelyn described the Lord Mayor's Day flotilla as boasting music and peals of ordnance, both from ye vessels and the shore. This time around, we got John Barrowman. There he is, putting the camp in campanology. Now...
You sure it's not a mass suicide attempt? It's John Barrymore. I know.
Who was it that remained sodden but unbowed throughout the flotilla? Did you see
Philip, surely.
Yeah.
I mean, he's
I don't think he
poor
was
fella.
sodden.
The guy, yeah, but he's 91. He's been doing this for decades. He's so bored he's had to feign a bladder infection to get out of here.
He joined in the dance hall. We thought he did. It turned out he just really badly needed a toilet.
Let's take a quick look at Sky News. This is how they covered the final stages of the pageant.
1,000 boats have travelled 7.5 miles down the River Thames to mark the Diamond Jubilee.
Meanwhile, over on the BBC, Tess Daly's being knighted by a transvestite.
Hello.
Name?
Tess Daly.
And I believe I'm knighting you for services to working in the rain.
That's right, yes.
Do you know what, Ian? I'm beginning to see your point.
Yeah.
To be fair on the BBC, though, it is endemic across all of television. They just make it as though everyone's so stupid, and they're not making it for themselves. They do it for this sort of imaginary idiot. And it's infuriating, and it's not just BBC, it's not just that programme, it's all of them.
Stephen Fry, he pointed out mistakes such as one presenter calling the Queen Her Royal Highness instead of Her Majesty. He asked, has the BBC presented a more mind-numbingly tedious programme? QI?
QI is a brilliant programme, isn't it? That's one of the few that isn't for morons. It's practically the only one. Like, you can't even risk making jokes about QI because it's practically the last programme where they imagine the viewer might be able to spell.
What did the BBC admit to? This is a classic phrase.
Trying too hard.
It agreed that it didn't own the tone of the flotilla.
Own the tone.
According to The Independent, as the Spirit of Chartwell ferried the Queen between the raised halves of Tower Bridge, the BBC cut instead to HMS Belfast, where Fern Cotton was talking loudly to war veterans. Core, she yelled at one of the heroic old buffers. You got hit by a torpedo, didn't you? And you held on to a dead shark. What surprises were lying in wait for the Queen along the route?
Boris turned up on a boat. It was great. Someone next to me shouted at him, "Is that your wife, Boris?"
Also, from the roof of the Royal Festival Hall, there was a message spelt out in semaphore flags. We're going to go over now to the BBC's Paul Dickinson, who at last realised that he did need some expert help. His nautical expert is Tom Cunliffe. This is his chance to shine.
And we've got some semaphore here, just on the top level of the Royal Festival Hall. Tom, I think you can understand that, can't you?
I've got a clue.
And Lord Prescott got his oar in as well this week. What was he complaining about?
Oh, there was apparently there were some people who were employed as security or something like that, and they actually had to sleep overnight underneath London Bridge.
Yeah, there were 30 job seekers now.
Yes.
There were people who weren't being paid, and then there were another 50 apprentices who were getting paid, I think it was £2.80 an hour, and they were bussed in to help, and then the bus dropped them off too early, and they were left at 3 a.m. to sleep under a bridge.
And they got a poncho, I think, to keep.
Yeah, they got a free poncho and hypothermia.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, I don't want to trivialise it, though, but I think it's high time that we start having people live under bridges again. The goat population in London has got out of control lately. And that's my understanding of the government's scheming.
No, I think that's right, and I'm glad you didn't trivialise it.
Meanwhile, how did the Queen get maximum enjoyment out of the Jubilee concert?
She had her earplugs in.
She did.
She gets nervous around fireworks.
Now, the fireworks were the good bit. That was incredible. Madness, singing on top of the house.
What I loved about that is while Madness was singing Our House, they were projecting images of small terrace houses and blocks of flats onto Buckingham Palace, which I think is almost taunting the poor. This is what you live in. This is what we live in. I've imagined that there was a meeting before the concert where I imagine Gary Barlow was chairing it, where they talked about how they were going to capture the spirit of Britain. And then halfway through, one member of the panel, in my mind, just had a nervous breakdown and went, yeah, and maybe we could have the Jamaican singer Grace Jones hula hooping. What could be more British than that? And I love the idea that the rest of the panel were going, let him have this. Seriously, his wife's left him.
In the build-up to the concert, the BBC reporter Lito Mazimba coped remarkably well with that age-old problem of someone who thinks it'd be really funny to get in the back of shot.
We're going to be talking to all the stars and headline acts here backstage at the Palace. A huge array of talent are going to be on stage, the likes of Stevie Wonder, Elton John, Robbie Williams, and then, of course, it's the man who's been the driving force behind it all, Gary Barlow. And earlier, my colleague Emily Bailey spoke to him.
was a small group of Republicans. They staged a protest on the banks of the Thames. Let's take a look at some monarchists, some more monarchists. And meanwhile, what did Sally Bercow do before attending the Thanksgiving service at St Paul's Cathedral the next day? What did she do?
Oh, she tweeted, saying, "Isn't the Jubilee a load of rubbish?" I didn't read the tweet. Did you, Victoria?
Ridiculous monarchist. I'm going with no pants on, hashtag speak.
Yeah, I thought she'd been that witty. She described royalist members of the public as mindless, flag-waving loons. How did the celebrations end?
Fireworks, lighting of beacons, all that sort of stuff.
Let's enjoy that moment then, just after the celebratory volley of gunfire. This is where tradition demands that the military band is conducted by a man with an extra set of arms. And finally, let's end this on a rousing rendition of the national anthem from Charles and Camilla. This was during their visit to a street party in Piccadilly. Note to Charles and Camilla, it does have more than one verse.
Just realised again. Not his favourite lyric, I imagine.
Yes, it's been a triumphant weekend for the royal family. At the concert, Paul McCartney said, "I hope Prince Philip is okay. We have got our fingers crossed." Unlike Philip, who had his legs crossed for 4 hours, which caused the problem in the first place. The Duchess of York wore the perfect outfit for the occasion, a dressing gown and slippers, as she watched it on the sofa. Ian and Greg, take a look at this.
Baroness Warzy, Spice. Cameron eating porridge, like most of his friends will be in prison. Oh, there's
Jeremy
Hunt.
Jeremy Hunt does an amazing line in sort of startled deer impressions.
This is the serious news that was going on beneath the bunting. David Cameron's got to decide what to do about 2 people in his cabinet. Jeremy Hunt, the man in charge of the B-Sky B bid, who was made to look very guilty by the Leveson inquiry. I'm not saying he is, but he is.
Guilty of what, exactly?
Not having a quasi-judicial frame of mind.
He didn't know what it meant.
No. Certainly, he's got to decide whether to refer him to the Parliamentary Commissioner, but he has referred Baroness Warzy.
Right. She's referred herself to the Parliamentary Standards Committee.
She's referred herself to the sleaze watchdog.
Yeah.
It sounds so filthy.
Yeah. It's an odd procedure, isn't it? I want to know if I'm guilty of anything bad, because if I've been up to no good, I want to be the first to know.
Yeah, so do you think she's guilty then?
Baroness Warzy, well, she did go abroad on a state visit with a relative who she's in the business with.
Oh, he's a relative as well as being a...
Apparently, yes.
Oh, but come on. David Cameron complained about that. This is a man who travels with his favourite 50 arms dealers. She's gone with his chap. You know, they run a spice company or something. She's trading in nutmeg. That's my kind of corruption.
Yeah.
It's nice.
She was staying at a friend's house and claiming the £165.50, which you said she was passing on to him, and he confirmed it, didn't he, in a statement saying, yes, I can confirm that I charged an amount that would cover my inconvenience for her being there, which intrigues me, and the extra expense of having someone in a room for a night, £165.50. I can only deduce that Baroness Warzy was operating an industrial lathe.
Baroness Warzy has opened herself up to the aforementioned sleaze probe from the...
That was beneath you.
It's not beneath... No,
What's been happening in the Eurozone this week?
Well, it's more of the same, isn't it?
If you read the 10 o'clock news,
Yeah,
it'd be so
more of the
short.
same. Yeah, exactly.
Forget Robert Peston, get Paul in.
Nothing much has happened.
Yeah, more of the same. Spain's gone bust. Next.
Yeah. We need to send lots of money to Madrid. I haven't got any left.
That's right. But Spain is in desperate need of a bailout, but they are falling over themselves to say that they definitely don't need.
Yeah, they don't need a bailout, but they'd like everyone to give them a huge amount of money. And they're quite desperate. They've applied to Greece.
I was in Spain this summer, and this is absolutely true, Ian. I went to a Spanish market, and the first stall I came to, there was a man who was selling socks. That was one of the things he'd specialised in. And he'd chosen to specialise in another thing. And it was potatoes. I just think if that's indicative of the way that they approach economics, they honestly deserve what they get. I mean...
So Spain's in trouble. Greece, of course, is also still in trouble.
Sorry, do you not think this is relevant, what I'm saying, Kirsten? You seem to be changing the subject.
She's developing your theme.
Fine. As long as this relates specifically to that market stall, please continue.
Did you see how Jeremy Paxman referred to Greece in a recent edition of Newsnight?
Is it flattering terms?
It wasn't entirely. He said, like a bad kebab, Greece is being vomited out of the European Cyprus is also trying to put a brave face on the looming crisis. Would you like to know what the head of the Cyprus National Bank is called? Panikos Dimitriadis. So what solution to the euro crisis is being urged by Britain, the United States, and indeed George Soros?
Watch the football instead.
Well, it's pretty much that Germany should take over the whole of Europe, except Britain, and just tell everyone what to do. George Soros has put it like this. He said it would be a German empire, with the periphery as the hinterland.
I can't believe no one's thought of this before. I mean, it's perfect, isn't it? They must have been high-fiving each other in that meeting.
It's been another turbulent week in politics. In Westminster, it's emerged that MPs have been complaining about the facilities in the House of Commons. Last week, it was reported that the toilets were in a terrible state, but to be fair, they'd just been used by Jeremy Hunt before he headed off to the Leveson inquiry. Also this week, Spain was dragged deeper and deeper into the Eurozone crisis. George Osborne was called away from Jubilee celebrations to speak to the Spanish finance minister in an emergency conference call. He realised something was wrong when Spain asked if they could reverse the charges. On Newsnight, Jeremy Paxman offended the Greek finance minister, Georgios Papakonstantinou, by referring to the Greek economy as a bad kebab. The Greek finance minister was so furious at the stereotyping that he smashed all his plates in disgust and danced sideways out of the studio. Let's go to round two now, the picture spin quiz. Fingers on buzzers, teams.
New Archbishop of Canterbury.
Let me give you a clue. That's Rabsy Nesbitt. He's from Glasgow.
Yes.
He's not known for his charm.
Right. But Glasgow people are charming. It's a counterintuitive poll. They're delightful.
Not quite.
They're not delightful. Oh no, you're going to tell me people in Paris are rude soon.
Is this not to do with Ken Loach? He complained about that he couldn't get the right rating for his film because it had too many swear words in it. But he said, well, that's just how everyone speaks in Glasgow. Which I'm sure can't be right.
No, that's right, it is. The Commonwealth Games are coming to Glasgow in 2014, so in preparation...
Politeness lessons.
Yes, absolutely. This is the news that thousands of Glaswegians are being sent to charm school in preparation for the 2014 Commonwealth Games. Around about 10,000 service industry workers will be offered a one-day course at which they will be taught to speak...
I love that. When a woman walks past, don't shout, get your tits out. It's get your tits out.
Whose principles do you think these charm schools are based on?
Is it British Telecom?
No, it's Walt Disney.
To be fair about Walt Disney, I mean, he was a Nazi sympathiser, but he was so polite.
Yeah.
I do have, remarkably, a Scottish Walt Disney joke.
Oh, good.
What's the difference between Walt Disney and Bing Crosby?
I don't know.
Bing sings and Walt Disney. How are pupils being asked to end their sentences according to the Telegraph?
They presumably have to end them with the name of the sponsor.
No.
Thank you very much, Coca-Cola.
They're being asked to end their sentences with a US-style, enjoy the rest of the day.
To which the correct reply is, I'm so sorry, I've made other plans.
Part of the course will require workers to make pledges. Can you imagine what the pledges might be that Glaswegians would have
Is
to
it the
make?
Temperance Pledge?
One is, I will learn about the Glasgow Botanic Gardens. This is my favourite. I will learn to smile more often. And in other Scottish news, what was the cock-up in Edinburgh.
They used the word cock about a symbol.
Well, they made
French
a symbol
symbol.
that...
Oh, was this
Yeah.
lasagna?
No. But I'm delighted to work out how you're going to join up those two thoughts.
Cock and lasagna.
Yeah.
That's a good night out. Don't broadcast
That's my perfect Friday. Yeah.
There was a story about meatballs. Tesco produced these meatballs, and they thought, oh, it's Italian, let's put some Italian words on it. Yeah. And they just put things like, I think, coglioni del mulo on the thing, and no one knew what it meant. It actually means donkey's bollocks. And they've had to withdraw them, is that right?
That's right.
Really, that must be quite difficult to withdraw.
And that's in the Tesco's finest range. I would hate to think what's in this. It's much less funny than that story. It's basically... the organisers of the Edinburgh Marathon handed out 23,000 medals. They looked like this. This is the news that Glaswegians are to be sent to charm school in preparation for the 2014 Commonwealth Games. According to the official Glasgow Commonwealth Games website, a crowd of 1,000 gathered at Glasgow's Old Fruit Market to watch the bid result live, beating the previous record for most people at a Scottish fruit market by 999. According to the Daily Record, the Charm Workshop is based on principles created by the Walt Disney theme parks. And for a terrifying white-knuckle ride, why not catch a late-night bus through Glasgow city centre? OK, fingers on buzzers, teams.
It's a pig.
It's
That much we can tell.
OK.
This is the pig that learned French.
No.
No. I'd be surprised if it was. I've just made it up. Bonjour, I am a pig.
It's something to do with Euro 2012.
This is pigs playing centre half. A number of injuries.
It's not to do with football at all.
Yes, it is to do with... That was the clue I gave you. It is
Oh, I
to
see.
do...
Pig is the national animal of the Ukraine.
It is a Ukrainian pig. It's
Yeah.
also a psychic pig.
Psychic pig!
And it's named Funtik, and it's been unveiled as a successor to Paul
the
Octopus. Exactly.
Football, my special subject. You should have said.
And it's going to predict the Euro 2012 results. Can anyone imagine how the pig is going to make its predictions?
Just hold on a second. Okay, it's not going to predict the 2012 results.
Well, it is.
It's not.
It might be wrong.
It
It make a
is gonna
prediction. It might be a wrong prediction.
It can't make a prediction. It's a bit. You can stand on a
Pigs
square
are
that
very
a person can say.
Yeah, well, pigs are very intelligent. I'm sure it's not just going to stand on a square. It's about sort of mime, a little bit charade.
According to a Ukrainian news source, ahead of each game, Funtik, the psychic Ukrainian pig,
Yeah.
It's not psychic.
is going to be...
Being laid down on this pig.
No, he's going to eat from one of two plates of food, each marked with the national flags of the team playing. He's not going to like the Danish one, is he, when it comes to that? In slightly less important football news, Ian, Rio Ferdinand is furious about his omission from the England squad.
I'm not surprised.
Yes.
He was furious. I was gutted.
You love his defensive work, don't you?
Yeah.
Why is he furious?
Well, it's the belief that he's been left out of the England squad not because of footballing reasons, but because John Terry will be standing trial for racially abusing his brother. Possibly. That's what he's charged with, anyway.
Yeah.
But isn't it worth not going to these countries anyway? Because aren't they full of lunatic right-wingers?
I'm not sure that all people who play on the right wing are necessarily lunatics.
And what is it that's making Roy Hodgson's argument look flimsy?
Oh, who's Roy Hodgson?
He's the England manager at the moment. Although by the time the repeat goes out, I may not really...
Rio was overlooked in favour of Liverpool's Martin Kelly, who, according to The Sun, has spent more of his career on the bench than on the pitch.
Is that bad? Well, the judges spent quite a lot of time on the bench.
You spent more time in the dock than at your desk. So
Yeah, all right. Yeah, send him down.
This is a psychic pig who's going to...
Not a psychic.
I don't think we can properly judge how psychic is until we see some of its predictions.
We can.
Well, suppose it gets the first 6 matches right. Then what? Where's your no psychic pig stance then? What if he channeled the spirit of Elvis Presley?
But if the pig did correctly predict the future, would you accept it was a psychic pig?
Is it just me? All right, okay, go on then, carry on. The psychic pig.
Thanks. This is a This is a psychic pig who's going to predict the outcome of the matches in the European Football Championship. It's the first porky psychic to hit the headline since Russell Grant was fired out of a cannon. England fans have been warned by police in Poland that if they misbehave, they will face a high-tech sonic cannon that makes victims wet themselves. Whereupon a frustrated Prince Philip phoned the Polish police to ask if he could borrow it. Right, fingers on buzzers, teams.
I feel awful. We don't know any of these. Oh, this is that brilliant unicycle story, isn't it? It's not even a unicycle. I can't even tell you anything about the story from looking at a picture.
I don't understand that photograph there, because the park bench is slightly blurred, which suggests that the park bench is moving at some speed.
He's a postman.
Yes.
Is he?
Yes, and it's the
Sort of.
It's the penny farthing post. We've decided it would be quicker for people to ride on bicycles to deliver our letters than put them in the hands of the post office.
All
So
of
he's
which-
offering his own service
Yes.
in a village.
Yes.
I've just made that up, but it's true.
This is remarkable. This is Graham Eccles from Cornwall has decided to set up his own postal service on a penny farthing. How does the service work?
You give him a letter and he gives it to somebody else. You may not almost always a different person from the one he picks it up from.
Yeah. You're broadly right.
I think so.
According to the Express, customers can buy a 25p stamp for a local letter, post it in a town shop and have it delivered the following day.
God, if only it could be rolled out nationally somehow.
If I lived down there, I would be, just for fun, constantly sending letters to Glasgow.
What sort of problems has he encountered?
He's mentally ill.
Graham says, I've had trouble finding addresses, being barked at by dogs and been buffeted by hailstones, getting soaked to the bone is starting to get a bit tedious, and I need a new back wheel. Just pack it in, Graham, I would say.
I could have told him all that was going to happen, but then I have got a psychic pig. Did you really just get the story about that man?
Yeah, it's sort of a good idea.
It's amazing. Looks like Ian's sidekick, Victoria.
You know who's going to win the Uruguay?
The Uruguay?
Ian, when you dip your toes into popular culture, you end up talking bollocks.
This is Graham Eccles, who has started his own penny farthing postal service in Cornwall. Graham's keen to preserve the traditions of the old-fashioned postal service. Bet he still uses a kettle to steam open the envelopes that might have cash in them. Time now for the odd one out round. Ian and Greg, your four are Gordon Brown, Wallace, Aaron Barnard and Geoffrey Howe.
Is it they all wear the wrong trousers?
It is about trousers. Was there a Geoffrey Howe story about trousers years ago?
Oh, he left them on a train?
Yes, that's right. And,
The ones he was wearing?
Yes, it was never fully explained. I mean, I don't know the guy with the underpants. Maybe he's the odd one out because everybody else has involved trousers and he's involved pants.
Yeah, you're right.
Am I?
Yeah. They have all had their trousers stolen, apart from that bloke there. He's called Aaron Barnard, who was sacked from his job in a pant factory after being accused of stealing some pants.
Well, he hasn't done it very subtly, to be honest, has he?
How did Aaron actually prove his innocence?
Did he have the pants tested?
Well, according to Aaron, in the Telegraph, he pointed out that you can see that the boxers aren't new.
Oh, no.
It could just be frayed, honestly.
Yeah.
Geoffrey Howe had his trousers stolen on a train. How did the thieves manage to steal his trousers on a train?
Just like the people used to do with that tablecloth trick, wasn't it?
They took them while he was asleep. He wasn't actually wearing them at the time, and luckily the police found them and they returned him before he had to get up and leave the train.
So he was on a train in a sleeper compartment.
Yeah.
He wasn't just sitting.
No.
On a commuter train and someone took his trousers. Good grief. Tickets, please. Oh, my goodness, I've got his trousers.
In a separate but somehow related incident, he lost his pyjamas in Peking.
How did he lose his pyjamas? What, in a card game? I mean, what was going on?
I've got nothing left. You've got your pyjamas. You'll cut mine.
Well, I don't know, any more than he had them stolen. He presumed he
That's all
didn't
you
need
know.
them back because he could put his day clothes on before he left the room.
Then there's another incident where he lost
Yeah.
his trousers.
Yeah.
We don't know how.
Yeah.
And he lost some trousers again.
Yeah.
He doesn't know what happened.
Comes a lady house sitting, I've lost my trousers again, guy.
Pauline Macaulay, who's Gordon Brown's mother-in-law, has revealed to a local newspaper that she stole Gordon's trousers and ties during his time in Downing Street in order to make a quilt. Now, here is the quilt.
Was he
Why-
working as a chef at the time that she stole the trousers?
Does anyone know what was Gordon's reaction to the quilt?
Did he love it?
Well, according to his mother-in-law, he was very happy, but the first words out of his mouth were, "Are my ties really that bright?"
Was that the first sentence out of his mouth, or was it, "You've made my trousers into a quilt, you mad bitch"?
Whilst making the quilt, Gordon Brown's mother-in-law said, "I'd take a bit of fabric from his trousers. I just don't think he had the time to notice what I was doing." No, he was too busy wondering where that draft was coming from. Paul and Victoria, here's yours. Flight ZB532, 2 eggs, Bruce Campbell's house, and Orville the cat.
Now, I recognise that cat.
Do you?
I saw that story. It's not alive, the cat. I think, I mean, I'm going to sound bizarre if this isn't the story, but the cat got run over and its owner had it stuffed and made into a helicopter. It's hard to tell looking at the picture whether that means he really loved the cat or really hated it.
So sorry, Victoria, you're happy to accept that there's a remote-controlled flying cat?
A psychic pig's a bit of a stretch for you, isn't it? Now, that bloke there, Bruce Campbell, obviously that looks like he's sort of... That's his house. It looks like the interior of a plane. The 2 eggs don't fly. They're the odd one out. Everybody else flies.
I guess that the plane is the thing
Yes.
that doesn't.
The plane doesn't fly.
You're right.
Oh, well done.
Yeah, they've all successfully flown, apart from flight ZB532 that was on May 31st, which had to land prematurely after a passenger set another passenger's hair on fire.
Doesn't that mean that it was flying at some point?
Well, it wasn't a successfully completed flight, and all the others
And how do we
were.
categorise a successfully completed flight for
One
a
that doesn't land
remote-controlled cat?
prematurely because somebody-
Let's just do that entire thing, shall we? Yes, here is the test flight.
Oh, no.
That is
Can you assure us no cats were harmed during the making of this?
The eggs. What's a successful flight for an egg?
Well, pupils from a school in Cambridge have won a trip to NASA by successfully launching 2 raw eggs 800 feet up into the air and ensuring that they returned to Earth intact.
Have you got any footage of the eggs?
I don't think we do. No, I don't think we do have
Okay, so
footage.
you're prepared to believe in a psychic pig, but you won't believe that the eggs flew into the air without...
Don't look at me. Of course I don't believe in a psychic pig.
A pig told me you would say that.
Yeah.
Bruce Campbell has a house that used to fly because it is actually a 727 passenger jet. After a night out, Bruce sometimes takes girlfriends back to his plane, where 1 or 2 have joined the Meter High Club. Time now for the Missing Words round, which this week features as its guest publication Button Lines, the journal of the British Button Society. And we start with Homer at war with his wife after what?
After she sells his pre-war button collection to the RSPCA in Lewisham.
It is button related.
Of course it is.
Yes.
She goes out and buys 15,000 zips.
The answer is emptying her CD cases in order to use them to store his button collection. This is from the Journal of the British Button Society, which laments the fact that 50 members did not renew their subscriptions last year. Now, there is a technical term for this in the button world. It's known as coming to your senses. Next, former MP fails in a bid to become what?
Professional wrestler.
Yes, the answer is a professional wrestler. This is former MP Lembit Opik. Here he is in action. Now, Lembit hasn't been in a hold like that since Sean Lloyd found out about that cheeky girl. Next, most button collectors have what along the way?
Dementia.
Is it flirted with Velcro?
No, the answer is picked up a stud or 2. Next, people find it difficult to get rid of their grandmother's what?
Buttons. Teeth. Body.
Is it hold on the throne?
The answer is tin of buttons. This was from an article in the Button Journal by Nina, a new collector who's writing a book about buttons and asks for people to reveal their button anecdotes, and saying she will respect any desire for privacy. Ah, yes, how many of us have button anecdotes that we will only share if our names are kept out of it? And finally, what is harder to quit than smoking?
Oh, nothing.
The answer is swearing. This is according to a recent survey. Mind you, no one's ever died from swearing, apart from that time in the theatre when Abraham Lincoln turned round and said, "Shut the up, we can't hear the play." So the final scores then are Ian and Greg have 5, Paul and Victoria have 8. On which note, we say thank you to our panellists, Ian Hislop and Greg Davis, Paul Merton and Victoria Corrin, and I leave you with news that the BBC denies claims that budget cuts will affect the new series of Doctor Who. In Pyongyang, there's controversy surrounding a new fast food delivery service. And during the concert at the Palace, an opportunistic thief rifles through Cheryl Cole's handbag. Good night.